Shamyra is the founder and chief well-being officer of Born Boundless International. She gives Black women in leadership positions a mental makeover by showing them how to make self-care non-negotiable so they are emotionally whole and no longer suffering in silence, which leads to fatigue and burnout. Shamyra shows her clients how to upgrade their self-care practice from awesome to amazing. She champions for all women to show up for themselves as the way they serve others. Shamyra is a Charlotte native and mom of two amazing boys, with a mission to not only inspire, but to also offer strategies and tools that ignite mindset shifts that are critical for lifestyle transformation. She has 10 plus years of corporate sales and marketing experience and another 5 years in health and wellness outreach. Shamyra facilitates workshops, courses, and professional development with the urgent message that not making yourself a priority has a price tag. Please help me welcome my guest, Shamyra Parker, to the show. How are you?
Oh, wow. How are you? Thank you for
I am.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to
Yes.
have you on. It's been a while. I've been trying to get you. You are you are heavily in demand and a busy, busy woman. So I thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here and excited to talk with you.
Yes. So tell my listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and your story and your journey and how it has led you to where you are today.
Sure. Well, you told the beginning, but where do I start? I am a woman who's been through a lot, and it doesn't really show, right? People always say I don't look like what I've been through, but it's
Uh,
true.
yeah.
I have gone through a lot of trauma in my life. I am a suicide survivor. A lot of people don't know that. Um, I have survived a divorce that involved some abuse, some emotional abuse, and things like that that a lot of people don't know about because those wounds are not wounds that you see.
Yeah.
So just being a survivor of those things and seeing the woman that I became inside of those things, where I lost myself and how I reclaimed who I was, rediscovered who I was, it made me super passionate about self care. Like I always say, self care saved my life. I was
Wow.
drowning. I was
Yeah.
drowning. I lost myself. I was just Asher and Asa's mom. I was just Kevin's wife.
Yeah.
And I literally felt like one day I looked in the mirror and I only saw a shell of who I used to be, didn't recognize myself. I
Hmm.
was running on autopilot and I was I was on the verge. Like I was
Yeah.
in a really bad place. And it was because of self-care that I was able to really come from that place to where I am now. And so that journey and those experiences and the tools and the things that I did, that's what I love to share with people. It's not that I have it all figured out. And that's what I like
Yeah.
to tell people.
Yeah.
I'm not a guru. I'm just sharing with you what I've figured out thus far in my life that's helped me in hopes that what I share with you is something that you can use that can help you in your life and to really help you become emotionally whole because a lot of people suffer in silence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. I did not know that part of your story.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are so many women out there who share those same experiences, including myself. I am also divorced,
Mm.
and I went through some of the very same things that you mentioned as far as losing yourself,
Yeah.
only being known as the wife or the mom,
Right.
to the point of where I didn't know who I really wanted to be. I had that person in me, right? And
Hmm.
that person kept talking to me.
Yeah.
And then it became a point one day where and this is where I always say that my spiritual awakening and myself kind of
Yeah.
met, my ego and myself, my true
Hmm.
self met,
Hmm.
was the day that I had pretty much a nervous and panic breakdown, a panic attack and a nervous breakdown, because the two, finally met each other, and
Mm-hmm.
so I realized I'm like, whoa, I'm not, I'm not showing up the way I truly want to, and
Yeah.
and I'm suffering. And so I say that to say to your point that a lot
Yep.
of women go through, and no one knew. No one knew because I
Mm-hmm.
carry myself in a manner
Mm-hmm.
that I like to carry myself. It's not a inauthentic way. Like
Yeah.
I carry myself and take care of myself because I know I have a lot of responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that did not mean that I wasn't suffering and wasn't dealing with
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
so, thank you for sharing that piece.
Absolutely.
And so, and it sounds like you said, self care saved you.
Yeah.
So, did you not know about self care before then?
No, I really didn't.
Same.
I didn't know about self care, and I definitely didn't know what self care was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to practice it. I remember I went into really intense therapy, and I
Mm-hmm.
also hired a life coach. And it was my life coach that started to help me define that, help me discover what it was and define it for me. I always teach my ladies, like, this is not a one size fits all thing. Self care is not one size fits all.
Yeah.
You have to discover what it means for you, your lifestyle, your family. And so when we first started talking about it, I remember her asking me to make this list. And then I came back to her and the paper was blank. Like, I was like, I don't know what to put on here. I didn't
Because it had
know
been that long that you were not thinking about yourself.
about myself. I didn't
Right.
know I didn't know things that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know things that I liked to do, what brought me joy that wasn't connected to someone else. That wasn't
Yes.
connected to doing something for someone else or wasn't their thing. I was like, "No, what's your thing?"
Yeah.
And I could not even believe the person that I used to be. How did I end up here? I had
Yeah.
my own interests. I had a life. I was social. And I was still doing those things, but I was social within this kind of the small little circle of my life, and everything still involved my family. And I did have
Yes.
my own thing. And
Yeah.
a lot of people really underestimate the importance of that.
Absolutely.
Autonomy is important to your individual sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that your sense of self is selfish, it's not. We should never lose ourselves just because we are tied to other people.
I think that is one of the misconceptions about self care, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like to equate self care, excuse me, or those
Uh-huh.
people who are not aware of what self care is, and when
Yes.
you talk about it, they equate that with selfishness.
Absolutely.
And so, and what I always tell people when I talk about self care
Yeah.
is it is it is it is selfishness, and selfishness is not bad, not in
Mm.
this particular type of way.
Mhm.
I think for us, we've been conditioned to think that putting ourselves first
Mhm.
is somehow, taboo or it's wrong. And so I personally like to tell people, yes, it is selfishness. Because if I don't take care of me, if I don't make
Mhm.
sure my cup is full, if I don't make
Mhm.
sure that I have all the things that I need to have to function, how do I give to others?
Yeah.
So that's how
Yeah.
I look at it. How do you look at it when people equate self care to selfishness?
I literally had a mom say that to me the other day. She asked actually the question, but isn't that selfish? I actually say no. I actually say no, it's not selfish
Mm-hmm.
because I don't believe that doing something, and I know this isn't, a spiritual or religious platform, but I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this very clearly because I'm a woman who is a believer. Um, I don't believe that God placed me on this earth to neglect the temple that He provided me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how it could be selfish
Mm-hmm.
if this is me, this is my body, He created me. And if He created me and gave this to me, if I'm supposed to be a good steward over everything else, then why would it be selfish to be a good steward over me, my
Yeah.
body, my health, and my well-being? I don't think that that's selfish. I think that it's good stewardship,
Yeah.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. And I also think that it's a necessity. Like, how is something selfish that's a necessity? See, selfishness is tied to something that is not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is necessary for your vitality, for your life. If
Yeah.
you don't take care of yourself, you will have health problems. And I don't say this a lot publicly. I say it in some of my groups, but really, if you don't practice self care, you can die. And I know
That's
that
right.
sounds really crazy, but I have women in my groups who are in their 30s and 40s who have had heart conditions, who
Yeah.
have had kidney failure, who have had crazy things that you think wouldn't happen to them at that age because they were going and going and not taking care of themselves. So I say that if you don't take care of yourself, you can lose your life. How is that selfish?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I of course term the word selfish. I kind of turn it around and turn it
Yeah.
back on
Yeah.
people. But I think that definitely being able to articulate and being able to educate people about what self care is and what it isn't is very
Yeah.
important. So tell us some more things about what self care is and what it is not.
So I say I'll start with the what it is not. So we know it's not I'll say this, it's not an indulgence, right?
Hmm.
Because when we think about selfishness, you turned it around, but really when people think about selfishness, they think that it's indulgent,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
so
That's it.
yeah, that's what it is. And it's not
Hmm.
indulgent. So I'll say it's also not something that you cannot afford. A lot of people say, well, I can't afford it. Like that's a luxury that I cannot afford. And when they say afford it, they're talking about affordability in terms of time
Hmm.
and money.
Yeah.
It's not just money. People think money, but people are saying, I can't afford this. Do you know how many things I have to do? I cannot
Yes.
take the time. Yeah, that's a luxury I can't afford. So I go against that. I
Hmm.
say you cannot not afford to practice self care. If you
Yeah.
don't, limited self care leads to mass self destruction.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
absolutely has a price tag. So, what you're doing is you're either choosing a hospital bill or you're choosing your self care bill. So,
Yeah.
you have to shift that mindset around it. Um, what self care is simply, very simply, the practice of taking care of yourself.
It
And
sounds like such a simple concept. It sounds so simple, right?
it
Self
does.
care.
It,
So tell me, why is it so hard for women to practice self care?
I am so glad you asked that question. That's wow, that question goes deep. That runs deep. And
Hmm.
and so there's women, then there's black women, right? So and fellas, we love you, right? We love you. And we know that you need self-care as well.
Yes, they do.
But one of the reasons why I serve women is because we have really just been taught naturally to care for others and nurture others
Hmm.
and sacrifice ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've been taught that way since we were little girls. We were taught to be nurturers. And it's not that being a nurturer is a bad thing, but we were never really given any limits around that. We were never simultaneously taught that you have to pour back into yourself. And
Sure.
then, so I serve women, but then I super serve Black women. And let me tell you why. The reason why I super serve Black women is because we have an added layer. Okay. So the added layer that we have to get through, which makes taking care of ourselves feel counterintuitive, is that it's messaging that goes all the way back. Right.
Yeah.
So we can take this
Hmm.
all the way back to the slavery days, where as Black women, we were taught to serve our masters. Right. So we're servicing the needs of our masters, their family, their wives, their children. And then when we got done, we served our family.
That's
So
right.
when did a woman have time to take care of herself, a Black woman? There was no time
Right.
to take care of yourself. And the thing about it is, no, are we still slaves? No, but that messaging has been passed down generation to generation to take care of your family, take care of everyone else. And it's not that sacrifice is bad, right? But
Right.
it's not sacrifice, it's sacrificing to an unhealthy deficit.
To a
It is,
detriment. Yeah.
yes, to a detriment and
Hmm.
martyring yourself in the name of serving others, in the name of, and I think that's the part, right? Because
It
you don't
is.
have to martyr yourself to take care of other people. You don't have to martyr yourself to nurture other people. You can take care of people and still recharge your battery and still pour back into yourself. But we were never taught that.
That is so true. And
Yeah.
even I'm very, very guilty of that. I used to think it was a strength or a Wonder Woman type,
Yeah.
trait that I was able to handle so much stuff at one time. I used to be like, I'm a multitasker. I can get things done. I can compartmentalize, I
Yeah.
can do that. I can hold it all up in here. I can do
Hmm.
all these things. And so I saw that as like, a healthy, trait,
Yes.
not knowing what it was doing to me, not understanding what it was setting me up for.
Yes.
And so I completely 100% agree with you. And it was something that I learned as a young age because I saw that people, thought I was very responsible. People thought I was very competent.
Yeah.
People, and I was, but it was, again, not healthy because I was going without a lot of things that I needed
Yeah.
as a woman and did not know how to ask for those things. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I became a, 39, almost 40 something year old woman
Yeah.
that I started learning how to ask for the things that I need. And here I
Yes.
am presenting to the world again as a responsible, competent,
Yeah.
intelligent woman, but could not, number one, identify what she needed and could not ask for what she needed.
Yeah.
And
And
that was a bit that's a big problem, and a lot of us are experiencing that right now.
it is. I'm so glad that you said that because just by you saying that, you give permission to other women who look like you, who have the career like you, who are, successful women who are again silently suffering. And that's
Yeah.
why I speak that language is there for a reason. And there's a reason why I spoke to women in leadership positions because women in leadership positions feel like they don't further have the permission because they have to hold up a certain facade, a
Yes.
certain, this speaks to, then we can go all down the road and talk about imposter syndrome and all these things. But,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we need people to believe that they can trust us,
Mm-hmm.
that we are capable, and that we aren't going to fall apart. And that even that messaging,
Mm-hmm.
the strong woman archetype has been really coming at us in so like we have no idea. We're just not even
We
conscious of it.
we really don't.
It's coming from everywhere.
We
All the
really don't.
shows that we love are reinforcing the strong woman archetype
Mm-hmm.
message.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm writing a book about this, and it's the reason why I talk about in my new bio in Instagram women who are ready to opt out of overwhelm and remove their superwoman cape.
Oh,
Why? Because it's an
yes.
invisible cape, right?
Yes, it
You
is.
can't see it, but it's there. And that strong woman archetype, again, has been something that has been perpetuated generations and generations upon generations. It started a long time ago, and the media is one of the main places that we get this messaging.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when we saw the Mamie back in the day, she was strong.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
took care of everybody and she was strong. She served and she didn't complain.
Yeah.
And you never saw her doing things for herself. And then that messaging continues. We see whether it's Olivia Pope, whether it's whoever
Yes.
it is, right? She fixes it. She saves the day and she looks
Yeah.
bad while she's doing it. But when
Mm-hmm.
she goes home to her popcorn, her wine and her tears, right?
And her
Because
big glass of wine.
her big old glass of wine and her popcorn and her tears.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
there is something missing because she hasn't given herself permission to come home to herself and give herself what she needs.
Yeah.
These messages are flying at us from every which way. And that's why it is so empowering for us to stand in our own power and stake claim for what it was our birthright.
That's
This is
right.
our birthright. We don't have to
Yes.
ask permission. That's why I don't believe when people say you empower women. No, I don't. I don't empower women. That would actually mean that I'm giving them something that they don't already have.
Right.
And I'm not giving anyone power. The
I like
power
that.
already exists.
It's already in us.
It's there. But
Yeah.
I am a guide.
Sure.
I'm shining a light on the path for you to come home to you
Mm-hmm.
and to give yourself permission to say no to others in order to say yes to you.
And no is a complete sentence.
Say it.
You know?
Yes, it
No.
is. Feels
I,
good, doesn't it?
it feels real good.
Yeah,
But you get a lot of pushback from that.
you do.
You get a lot of pushback from saying no and just leaving it at that. You know, I you were talking about the Olivia Popes and the saving. It's those things of, and also as a black woman, we're also fighting back against the stereotypes of the angry
Come
black
on.
woman.
Oh, yes.
So on one hand, they want us to be strong, capable, strong, capable, and what I would always also say, a mule. Okay,
The
a
mules of the
mule,
world.
the mule.
Yeah.
But then don't show any type of human emotions.
No.
Don't show that you are tired. Don't show that you
Hmm.
are weary, and definitely don't show that you are angry.
Do not. It is not safe
Okay?
out here for you for that.
No, and it's looked upon as, like it's like it's something dirty, but it's like,
Yes.
this is an emotion that humans have. So
Yeah.
then why are black women the
Yeah.
only race and of people that cannot
Openly express.
righteously and
Yeah.
express anger, something that is a human emotion. And so,
Yeah.
even when I used to hear that term, angry black woman, I would push back against it so quickly. And same thing, kind of like I do with the selfishness. I turn it around
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, I am angry. I'm angry, and it's okay because it's a
Yeah.
human emotion,
Yes, it is. Yes.
So, and I think that's another piece of dehumanizing
Yes, it
the
is.
black woman,
Yes, it is.
because I can't even go through a whole full range of a human.
No.
So I
Not
think,
openly.
no, not openly. No, no. So yes, you're right. It has been ingrained in doctrine, condition, and message
Mhm.
through the years. And I would say, I mean, even for me, I don't know, maybe it has been coming out about um, before I was cognizant of it. But
Yeah.
when do you say that it started to become more out there for women, especially black women, to practice self care and how important it was
I mean,
or is?
it's fairly recent, Carmen.
I,
Like,
I was gonna say,
I'm
I was
like, I
gonna
don't
say,
really even know that I can pinpoint for you a day.
because look,
It's super recent.
because look, this was so as I said before, I was diagnosed with I didn't say before, but I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety in
Mm.
2011.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like I said, that was when I actually had my spiritual awakening when I was diagnosed with
Yeah.
generalized anxiety. um, that's a story in and of itself. But it was then that I started on this road to kind of understand who I was and what and what I wanted. And
Yeah.
so I would say from 2012 is when it started to resonate with me. But even I struggled then. I struggled
Yeah.
then with the things I knew I needed to do for myself.
It's okay.
I had to call my mom up and I was like, Mommy, you know,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do. I want to go back and get my master's degree. But part of it is going to have me having to leave my husband and my kids for 3 months for an internship. I don't know how
Hmm.
this is going to look. How it's going to look
There you
is
go.
what I said.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to look. And to my surprise, with my mom being a different generation, I thought she was going to say something like, you're a wife, you're a mother,
Right. That's your responsibility.
But my mom said, you do what you need to do
Mm,
for you.
love that.
She was like, you do what you need to do for you. You have been there for your husband and your kids. It's time for you.
Yeah.
They'll be all right for 3 months. But I was so afraid. I was so
Yeah.
scared of what
Yeah.
people were going to think of me by making that decision. And so when I say that to say that it's been, to me, it seemed like it's been very, very recent that we are starting to come into our own and starting to understand how important it is to take care of ourselves.
It is. And permission is powerful, especially when we are giving it to ourselves.
Mm,
And when we stop reaching for outside sources and external people, things to give us the permission that we need, that we have the power to give to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what is happening is what we're seeing is we have our sisters out here, and because they are living the way that they're living out loud, it has given so many of us permission.
I think so
When,
too.
you know what I'm saying? So when
I
we
think so
see
too.
others doing it, we're like,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I want to know what that's all about, because most of them, they have their been through story.
Mm-hmm.
They have their been through story, but that permission piece is so powerful. And I say that because something you said earlier about the way it's been. Basically, we are giving ourselves permission to show up as our whole selves and
Whole
bring
self.
our whole selves and
Yes.
bring our full selves into spaces, even spaces that aren't safe. Because
Yeah.
traditionally, again, we've been taught to segment ourselves off
Yes.
and really tear ourselves off into bite-sized, palatable pieces to be palatable for those who cannot handle us in our full strength
Mm.
capacity, right? Because we are potent, we are powerful, and that's how we came here.
That's
And
right.
we knew that going into certain spaces, it wasn't safe. And so we were taught a long time ago from generations before, you can do this, but not over there. You can do
Yeah.
this over here. And what happens
Yeah.
again, it never stays in this one area. It bleeds into the other areas of your life until you realize, and this, I'm going to speak for myself. One day I realized I had not ever really fully been my full self with anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it's not that I was being fake.
Exactly.
I just
Exactly. It's
was
not about that.
used to moving and shaking and, code switching and, just being different parts of myself in different situations for other people's convenience.
For their
And that was
comfort.
for
For their
their
comfort.
comfort, for their comfort, for their
Yeah.
convenience. And what happened was I got so used to doing it, it's how I operated. So
Sure.
when we talk about being your authentic self, being your superpower, that's why.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we haven't been taught to be our whole selves. When I talk
Yeah.
about wholeness, I'm talking about your actual health, but I'm also
Yes.
talking about you just being you. Again, that's a part about coming home. Like, we have to come home, bring it back. Integration is
Mm-hmm.
the goal,
Yes.
because we are so segmented out. And how can you truly fully care for yourself and love yourself if you are never your whole self?
And you're leaving parts out.
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I love it. I love where, things are going. I love that you're so passionate about it and that it's your platform. And, this is one of my pillars that I talk about and that I also am passionate about because I saw the difference that it made in my life. I saw the difference that, had I not known what
Mm.
self-care was, had I not known how powerful it was, I don't know that I would have made it through my
Yeah.
divorce as
Oh,
whole as I did. And that's not to say that I didn't go through it. That's not to
oh
say,
no, you went through it. I know you
that's not,
did.
yeah, that's not to say I didn't go through it. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that I'm still not, that I'm fully there. But what I will say is that because of self care, I was able to continue on to do the things that I needed to do to take care of myself and
Yeah.
therefore take care of my daughters and all my other responsibilities and still be true to who I am,
Yeah.
true to Carmen.
Yeah.
And so that is why, so I saw that difference that it made in my life. And so I'm like, I got to share this. I got to share this with people. I got to find people who also believe in this and help them spread the message because it is to me, it is just such a disservice and it is such a sad, sad thing when I see women not loving and taking care of themselves
Mhm.
because they think it's wrong, because they
Yeah.
haven't seen it done before, or even simply and sadly because they don't know how to.
Yeah, it is. And I think you brought up several good points there that I want to kind of call out.
Hmm.
One is that self-care is a process. Like, in order for
Absolutely.
it to become a permanent lifestyle change, which is what you need to see that transformation, it does need to become a habit.
Hmm.
But that doesn't happen overnight. There will be struggles. There will be days when you call people and you ask people for permission for things, or to, make you feel better about things that you can do yourself. It's a process.
Absolutely.
And I love that you said it's not because I didn't go through it.
Hmm.
I was putting out messages about self-care and inspiration when I was going through one of the hardest times in my life. And people didn't know till maybe like a year later that I was even separated. They're
Same.
like, "Are you serious?" Right. Like, but
Same.
okay, so you get it. But people have this misconception that you have it all together and you're not going through things. And it's
Hmm.
like, it's the thing about it is this self-care thing, it has to be in spite of
Mm.
or because of, right? Because
Ooh, love
because I'm
that.
going through, right? Everything feels worse when you're not taking care of yourself.
Oh
So if
gosh,
I
that's so
already
true.
feel terrible and I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm already sad and I'm not taking care of myself, it's going to feel worse. So it is
Yes.
my job, it is my responsibility to myself to take care of myself. And it may
Yes.
be the most basic thing in that season of your life. It may look like, if you're going through depression, which some
Sure.
people are suffering from in this pandemic,
Hmm.
getting up and
Yeah.
taking a shower that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
For real, it may look like it's
Hmm.
taking a shower, brushing your teeth, and putting on clothes.
That's right.
That's self-care.
That's
Like, it
right.
doesn't it's it we have to get beyond the bubble baths. Like, let's get beyond the bubble baths.
Yes, I mean, and that's good that you said that, because I was going to say, what are some examples of self care? Because I mean, yes, self care can be those
Yes,
luxuries, they can be those
absolutely.
indulgences,
Yeah,
and there's nothing absolutely wrong with those
right.
things. And it looks different for everybody. But
Mhm.
what are some of the other things? I mean, like you said, just plainly taking a bath during this pandemic when we're all really struggling with having to, be inside and be quarantined for this amount of time.
Yeah, I think I have a long list because I actually segment self care out into about eight essential areas
Okay.
of self care, right? So when I talk about those eight areas of self care, we can address all those different ones. I could give you a long list, but I'll say the ones that I talk about the most are boundaries.
Wow.
Boundaries, like, because if you don't have them, and I hate to do it, like, because, but no, really, if
Yeah.
you don't have boundaries, you are going to struggle with every other thing in your life.
So what
And
are
these,
boundaries? What
so
give us?
boundaries,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So, like, for me, one boundary for me is when I come in the door, I need 20 minutes. I need a
Hmm.
minute. I just need a minute to get myself together. A boundary is me saying, communicating, and I'm giving examples instead of
Sure.
definition. But a boundary is me communicating to someone and saying, yeah, so I'm not going to be able to take that call with you because I've promised my son's present time with them. And I've already given this half of the day or this part of the day to work, and this last part is dedicated to them. So what other time works for you? What other day works for you?
Yes. Yes.
Boundaries are saying, yeah, so I'm not going to be on my phone for this particular time. Boundaries,
Hmm.
there are so many different ones, or even just as simply as one that I struggled with during my marriage. Yeah, I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm
Yeah.
no longer entertaining that.
Yeah.
So if that is the way that you will treat me or speak to me,
Hmm.
then I'm not available for that. That's a very
Absolutely.
like a very stern, strict boundary, but that's a way that I'm honoring myself and respecting myself. And that's how I really look at boundaries. There are ways that you are honoring yourself, there are ways that you're respecting yourself, and they are really roadmaps for
Sure.
navigating your relationship with other people and things. The quickest way to ruin a relationship, the quickest way to really undermine your relationship with something else, whether it's money
Hmm.
or people, is to not have boundaries. Because
That's
if
so
I
true.
don't communicate with you how I need you and I to interact, then I'm doing you a disservice. I'm doing this relationship a disservice. And I'm not just talking
Sure.
about romantic relationships, it's friendships as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
So that's why I say we have to look at all the different areas of self care. There's financial self care,
Yes.
there's even creative self care because we do have to pour into our creativity. There's relational and social self care.
Yes.
There's emotional self-care, mental self-care. I mean, like we could go on and on, physical self-care,
Sure.
even your career. There's vocational and occupational self-care. What are you doing in your career to not only set yourself up for what you say you want,
Hmm.
but if you're not happy where you are, then what are you doing to cultivate where you want to go? Are you
Absolutely.
going in, it's so many different ways. And that's how I break it down for people. Cause I'm like, you got to get past this. Like, it's so many things. Yes, it's the bath. Like
Hmm.
I one day, like I legit took a ridiculously long bath. I'm not even playing. And I did not apologize.
Good.
Like I took the bath and I needed it.
Sure.
But I want people to understand that what we've been fed, the way that it has been commodified, self-care,
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
that was by design. It
Yeah.
was by design and it was designed to keep you from it. If we commodify self-care and we make it seem like it's this capitalistic thing
Sure.
that is a spa day or a luxury, then those who really need it will feel like they cannot access it.
And therefore won't try
They
to do
won't
it.
try and they will continue
Yeah.
to be unhealthy and they will
Absolutely.
continue to be depleted and they will continue to be deficient in the areas that they need to be instead of being full and healthy. It was by design to keep them needing the things. Like,
Yes.
imagine if we lived in a society where everyone started taking care of themselves.
Hmm.
That would not be good for certain
Wow.
industries.
That's very true. That's very true. I've never really thought about it like that.
Yeah, it was by design.
Wow.
Yeah, they commodify something. How are you going to commodify something that I can give to myself? And that doesn't cost money. So now you're making me feel like it's a commodity that I have to obtain, purchase. I don't need to do
Right.
that.
Yes.
I don't need to do that.
That's deep. I really like that. I'm gonna have to think on that a little bit more
Yeah.
because
That
I've
was mind
never.
blowing for me when I had that realization. I was like,
Yeah, like
oh,
that's what I'm
yeah,
doing right
exactly. I was like,
now.
oh, that makes sense.
And you got to understand, I mean, I know you're a marketer and I'm a marketer too.
Hmm.
So we understand
Yes.
what our
Oh, yes.
primary job is when it comes to marketing a product, service, or something like that. But I never thought about it in the terms of commodifying self-care, and
Yeah.
not and then certain industries kind of going out of business.
If we were all taking care of ourselves and making it a top priority, and we were really focusing on those 8 areas of our lives and
Yes,
nourishing ourselves, we would be so whole. We would be so healthy.
that's so true. That's so true.
You
So true.
know, so many. I'm not saying it's the cure all. I'm not saying that, right? I'm not curing cancer here. I'm not saying that, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm saying that a lot of things would go away.
Yes. Yes.
Because if the reason why you have diabetes is because you weren't taking care of
Self.
your self nutritionally,
Hmm.
physically, your physical self care
Hmm.
was not in place, and then you made that a priority, then you no longer have a need for those medications. You no longer have a need for several of the things that you've gotten used to having a need for.
So it to me, like I said, it seems like you and I encountered self care very similarly,
Yeah,
and as you said, self care is something that we have all throughout our life and throughout different areas of our life.
yeah.
So how do you introduce self care to a person who has never heard about it before, who is obviously struck somebody like us when we
Right.
when we first, was introduced to it. I mean, so how do you now introduce self care to a person, and
Yeah.
how do they put together a quick plan to go into self care?
So I don't believe. Let me start off by saying that I don't believe in quick plans.
Okay.
Um, I don't because and I was just having this conversation with someone because a lot of people want me to come in and do that. Can you just come in and help them create a self care plan? And I'm like, I can if you want them to just like put it off to the side and let it collect dust or put it under their bed and they never use it again. I mean, I can do that if you want.
Okay.
But there are a lot of layers that we need to get underneath before they will actually take it seriously and it become a practice that is crystallized for them.
Practice. I like
Yes,
that word. A
it
practice,
is.
a lifestyle, right?
It is. It's a lifestyle, it's a habit. That is the reason why I wrote that first book, Breaking Bad, 21 Days to Break a Habit. It was breaking because I believe that the only way that you really create a new habit, like a healthy one, is by you break one and you replace it with a healthier one.
I
And
agree.
right. So like this book is just a self-accountability tool, but it was originally designed for the process of integrating into your life self-care practices, but it could be used for anything. For me, I really I don't do it. I'll say this. I've gotten to the point of working with people who already believe in self-care.
Okay.
Because it is such a hard when people don't already know that they need it or don't believe that they need it. I need them to at least know that they need it.
Yeah.
And I need them
agree.
to be then ready, right? Like not everybody's ready. I feel like the phrase I need to is the new like I'm trying. It's like I need to practice self-care. Everybody's saying they need to, but then they won't do the things that they need to actually practice self-care. And so I've learned over the years that I've done this, that for me, those are not really, because what happens is I take my time and I work with them and they just go back to doing what they were doing. Most of the people that are really ready have had major life events. They've had a nervous breakdown. They've had a panic attack. They've had a heart attack. They've had a stroke. Something happened to someone that they loved or cared about. Like they are ready because they have seen what it looks like when they don't. Those are the people that normally I get the better results from. But I will say this, if I start with someone who doesn't really know what self-care is, I don't use that word. I don't use that term.
Okay.
I just simply talk to them about their needs. And we start the conversation there, because when we talk about their most urgent need, people have a hard time doing that who aren't practicing self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do like a needs analysis with them. And that's really uncomfortable for people who don't practice self-care. It's an uncomfortable thing to think about, to talk about, to write it out. And, I ask them to pay attention to how it feels in their body, to even write on the paper. So we're talking about giving verbal voice. Okay. But what about written voice to your need? I've had workshops where women have had physical reactions to having to write on a piece of paper, maybe not even ever say it, what their needs were. One woman started crying. She said, I'm just so needy. I can't believe I have all of this on this paper. Like it was this shame, right? And that's why
I was going to say, yes,
that's
definitely.
bondage.
Yes.
Shame is bondage.
Yes.
And so we have to that's why I say layers. We have to talk about needs. We have to talk about what are you tolerating that you shouldn't be. We have to talk about what nourishes you. Do you know what nourishes you? What actually makes you feel full and nourished?
Yeah.
Like, so these are the layers that we walk through, the things that people know that they're tolerating that they need to get rid of, but they're entertaining it. They're dragging it like this weight. And the reason why that's important is not because on that day there's going to be this miraculous transformation, but there is something powerful, very powerful about seeing it on the paper. When you write it out and you see it, you can no longer deny it. When you write it, that's why it says write it and make it plain, write the vision, make it plain, because it's powerful now that you see it. You can no longer ignore it. Now you can go back, but it'll be there because you saw it. You can't unsee it and you can't unknow it. And so it makes it plain for them. And as we walk through that process, and that's an intensive process and it's hard. I did this in one day. I did an intensive with women and you could see they were like, another one. I'm like, y'all just hang in there. Just hang in there. I didn't say this was going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then we can get to starting to craft a self-care plan. And even in that, I need to know, what were you doing before? And what do you want to do now?
Yeah.
And then before we can really cement the whole thing, I have them come up with a proactive plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what kinds of things might come up that will prevent you from moving forward with this great plan that you just made?
Yeah.
Because you know it's gonna the resistance is coming. So let's
Oh,
go ahead
oh,
and talk
oh.
about it.
It's
It's
it,
coming. It's
it's
coming from your family. It's coming from your friends. It's
your
coming from your job.
job
It's coming from
everywhere.
you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as you fight through unlearning and releasing old programming,
That's right.
outdated programming,
Yeah.
old toxic, unhealthy mindsets, and learning what you love, what nourishes you, what lights you up. When you are in that process, you will be fighting yourself. And so I have them to look at that. Let's talk about it now. Okay. So what can you imagine would come up? And then I want you to tell me what can you do
Mm-hmm.
and verbatim what you will do instead of going back to the old thing.
To going back to the old.
And we write all that out. That is necessary, in my opinion, for a
I
self
agree.
care plan.
I
Like,
agree.
because just sitting there writing and saying, you know what, moving forward, every month, I'm going to take an hour to myself. And people say this stuff all the time. You know what,
Mm-hmm.
today I'm going to, but then something happens. Someone calls and they need them, or something happens.
Sure.
And the very first thing they do is abandon ship on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you always the first thing that you abandon? You have to get to a place to where self-abandonment is not your go-to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm listening to you, and I am literally going back and seeing myself in all those places
Me too.
that you are talking about. I mean, I'm over here like, yep, remember when I was like
Yeah,
that? When I
yeah.
remember. And, and especially the part about writing it down. Um, you know, um, I did that when I was going through my separation at the
Mm,
very beginning of my separation,
yeah.
probably within the first month. Because the first 6 weeks, I think I was still in shock. I was still
Yes,
very,
yes.
like, going through those different stages of
I
grief,
remember. Yeah.
and, but, I'm a believer that our inner true self is always our guide, and it's always speaking to us. It's
Yes, it
always
is.
speaking to us.
Yes.
And I was still enough in those moments to hear it. And just like you said, I wrote down, and I'm not ready to share those things yet, but I will at some point. But I wrote down four things
Hmm.
that I would not do or would not allow to happen to me because of my divorce. Because I knew myself,
Hmm.
and I knew what I was inclined to do. I
Yeah.
knew what,
Yeah.
and so I wrote them down. I wrote those things down, and to me, that was self care.
Yes.
That was
That
self
was
care
self-honesty, and
because,
self-honesty is self-care.
yeah, because I cared enough about myself at that time to make an agreement with myself
Mm, mm,
that no matter what goes down through all of this, these three to four things you will not do, and you will not allow to happen to you. And they didn't.
I
And
love
they
it.
didn't.
Mm,
And so when you talk about writing it down and making it plain, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so what I also hear too is about mindsets and a mindset shift. And I think that is something that people have to start kind of doing a little bit more research on, understanding what mindsets mean, understanding a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
mhm, mhm,
Because those things are so, with a fixed mindset, that is what keeps us back in the past. That's what keeps us back in those
mhm,
conditioned states. A
mhm,
growth mindset is what allows us to think of possibilities, what
mhm,
allows us to see things
mhm.
change and grow, and understanding that, yes, for me, that is where the true transformation happens, right? It
Yeah,
happens through that mindset piece. So,
yeah.
sitting here listening to you, you're so powerful, you're
Oh,
so
thank
clear,
you.
I relate so much to you, and I didn't even know all of this. I didn't know this. Because we don't know each other other
No.
than just hey, she loves self care,
Right.
and this chick over here has a podcast and talks about self care. Um,
But now
but
we have bonded over self-care.
we have because
Yes.
you know the real ones. You know the real
Yes.
ones, and you know the ones that have a story,
Yes.
and that story is what makes us who we are. And and that's why I have this podcast, is to share people's
Mm,
stories. It's for people to share their stories about themselves, about their brand,
mm,
how they overcome things. And my podcast is a part of my self-care.
mm.
It actually was a part of my plan, my self-care plan, because I got to a point where I'm like, I have all these things in me. I have them in my head. I want to share. I don't know what platform. I don't know how really to do it. I want to do it authentically because I'm very, much about it being from me,
Yeah.
in the way that I want to present it. And so this platform for me is self-care.
I love
And
that.
thank you. Along with massages, okay?
Yes,
Along
to
with
massages.
massages, okay?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And my gym. Everybody knows how I feel about my
Yes.
gym. Like my gym,
Yes.
like that was one of the biggest things, like during the quarantine, that I
Yeah.
really struggled with, was not having my gym. So tell my listeners and viewers how they can learn more about you, because I feel like I could sit here and talk to you all day long, all night long, and I would love
Same.
to have you back on to talk about imposter syndrome, which I think is
Yeah.
something that a lot of Black women, well, not just Black women, but
Women.
women in general,
Yeah.
struggle with. But I want to speak to Black women
Yes.
specifically. And then I think we got cut off on our other taping when we were doing, but the ride or die. I think we want to talk. We should
Struggle
definitely
bus.
talk about that.
Yes. I would
you
love to
know?
come back. I thank you so much for that generous invitation. I would love to come back. And I just want to take this time to say thank you for what you're doing, because you using your voice is so powerful. We often mute ourselves,
Yeah.
and you have unmuted yourself in the name of being a freedom fighter. And you probably don't see yourself as that, but your voice, and you using your voice in this way, you are fighting for so many of our sisters' freedom that you have no idea. The stories that you're sharing, and when you share parts of your own,
Hmm.
it is unlocking things in the spirits of those who are listening in ways that you have no idea, just because you're showing up out of obedience and love for yourself. And that's what happens. When you care for
You're not
yourself,
supposed to be making me cry
I'm
right now.
so sorry.
My
But I
makeup's
think
gonna run.
I'm so sorry. I just
No,
had to, I
I
mean,
appreciate that.
it's when we step into purpose,
Yeah,
it unlocks. We are liberating
yeah,
those when we raise our voices for those who cannot,
absolutely.
for those who can no longer, and for those who haven't found their voice yet. And
Yeah.
thank you for doing that. I can be found on all the social media platforms. I am not into Twitter a lot.
Me either.
Uh, I have a page ish. And it's just
I
Shamyra
know.
Parker. But no, I'm very active on Instagram.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I am Shamyra Parker on Instagram, and I'm that same handle across. So on Facebook, I am Shamyra Parker. On LinkedIn, I am Shamyra Parker. And my website is bornboundless.com.
Awesome. So great. Guys, please definitely check her out. Check her out on all the platforms. And she will definitely be a guest again,
Yeah.
to talk about so many different things. And I appreciate all the kind words that you say. It is something that is very near and dear to me, especially for our sisters to be able to uplift one another. And I know you say that you don't empower another woman, but just even reminding the other women that they have the power within themselves, and to speak, and to shout, even if your voice shakes.
Mm,
Speak,
yes.
speak
Yes.
your truth. and know that, there are a lot of
Mm.
women who have your back and will support you. And to me, you are one of those women.
Oh,
And so I say thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Talk to you soon.